Hello, my name is Athena. I'm a stand-up comedian, writer, and I've got a podcast. And I'm a parent too, and I've got a podcast because being a parent is great, but my children can't speak. Actually, I've been doing this podcast for so long, the eldest can speak now, and she's someone's doing the washing up.
I said, I'm going to talk to Athena from one. Don't go in the kitchen. And Owen's immediately decided to just go in the kitchen and start. He's having a tantrum now.
I don't want this to be the first couple I've led asunder. Oh, that was a door slam, Amy.
I know, he just slammed his door. I said, but his argument is it's 3 minutes till 1.
Okay, forget the podcast intro. Let's lean into this. Okay, we've just witnessed a bit of what we would call a domestic in the
mini
game.
tanty.
Okay.
I call it mini tanties.
But you have to. I live with my fella.
I think it was the clicking. I think when I sort of I forgot that I clicked at him stop what you're doing, and he was like, don't click at me because he clicks at me sometimes when he goes like this, like we're doing a thing because he works in tech, so he's like and I'm like, don't click at me.
So you knew that clicking would antagonize him, but you clicked anyway.
No, it's just that you were talking, so I didn't want to go, oi, shut the fuck up.
So how will you resolve this now? How would you make up and be as explicit as you want to be? You know.
I'll go into his office and I'll say, "How's your sulk? How's it going? How's your mini tanty?" And he'll go, "It's fine." And then I'll take the piss out of him until he laughs at himself.
Oh, that's good. What I'm just trying to think what me and my partner do after we have an argument. We just he'll be like, "Oh, you enjoy your evening," and I'll go, "No," and I'll go off and I'll eat an ice cream, and I'll go off. I'm playing piano now. we'll have a mini enforced separation for maybe 20 or 40 minutes, and then we'll go downstairs again and watch Marvel.
I'm so fascinated by your relationship, having read your script of sort of based loosely on how you guys got together.
Well, yeah, the script is kind of. So for people who don't know, Amy's a comedian and a writer, and we've been exchanging drafts of pilots that we have. And I've got a pilot that's loosely capital L, capital OOS, I don't know how you spell loosely, but it's loosely based on my experience of having a child with somebody very quickly. And it's a bit mad. But the sitcom has changed now completely to what you've seen. And I've not written the changed version because I've been busy. I've been busy and lazy at the same time.
I don't think you've been busy and lazy. Well, you keep popping up on Instagram, where you're popping up on telly, and you're also popping kids out. So you're quite busy. I don't think the lazy is in there.
Yeah, but you know what? What I do, which is very naughty, is when I have free time, I justify spending my free time on nothing because I'm like, I was on Mock the Week yesterday, so I'm doing fuck all for a week. It's like, no, there's stuff to do, right? I still have to work on this script. So, because if I don't write it, it's not going to get written. So.
Oh, FYI, if you have any more panel shows where that's all improvised, but you need a page of jokes for things, let me know.
You'll be the first person I go to.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. This is the great thing when all your mates start doing loads of TV stuff. You can go, hey, do you want any help with that stuff that's meant to be improvised? Ruining showbiz.
But literally, you look at the credits and it says written by, and you see 20 names. Because that was what I did. I used to write for other comics that did panel shows. So when I went on them, I was like, great. There's a lot of writing you've got to do, man. I'm probably pulling the curtains back a bit for people who don't know, but it's a half-hour show, but you're sat in a studio for almost 4 hours recording it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of jokes you gotta get out there. On every topic, you gotta say so much.
So it's tricky, and just we're learning the kind of rhythm of those sorts of shows. I mean, from all my mates who have done them, and just some, you can get really lucky with the comics that you put on who are like really supportive and, you know, sort of setting you up, knocking things up in the air and batting back and forth like a good rally. And sometimes you just get people who are damaged but very talented and don't want anyone else to succeed.
There's definitely a mentality of in all kind of TV and radio work, which is panel based, which some people can adopt, which is I'm here to make people laugh by myself, and I don't know what you lot are here for, your decoration, and it's not pleasant. But I think also that's because a lot of panel shows were set up to kind of they were set up by men for men, and that was very much their mentality. That whole kind of I've got the biggest dick in the room kind of mentality. And now that I guess they've opened out of it and they've let us on,
I
that
wonder if
that
that's how.
attitude.
I mean, I don't know because I'm not a man. I wonder if that's how men talk to each other. Like they sort of slap each other down and give each other shit. And whereas I don't know because I only like hang out with comedians and we just give each other shit the whole time. So I don't
Yeah.
know the nuance.
I think it's more that when that environment is created, the men don't complain, they just buy into it. So it's I think most men, I mean, I know guys and I think they have very loving relationships with each other. Do you know what I mean? It's not like guys get together and they're like they're constantly competing. But I think when that environment exists, they feel like they have to play into it rather than challenge it. Whereas we are like, this is really toxic. Like we don't like it. Whereas guys are more inclined to kind of rise up to it and be like, oh, actually, oh god, this is how it works. This is how it works. Incidentally, though, do you know what's different? I do a lot of regional work, so I do a show in Wales, and they called The Leak, and I do a show in Scotland called Breaking the News. Completely different atmosphere. So different. In fact, it's a joy to do those shows. They're radio shows, as it happens. Sometimes Breaking the News is on TV,
Oh
but
yeah, I didn't know
such
the
a
leak was
joy.
still going. I've done the
It's still
leak
going.
back in the
It's
day.
the crack's good on The Leak. I do look forward to the Leak shows.
So funny. Like I'm making something at the moment over here, and one of the old producers from the leak, like one of the old guy, like production staff, he's now over in LA. His
Yeah.
name's Jackson. He's lovely, and I noticed he was in LA on Twitter, and I was like, Jackson, come and work on this with me because like he's just brilliant. I met him on the leak.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, isn't it, I was speaking to some people. So I did the BBC Comedy Room and they asked me back to do a talk. And I was like, you what? And they're like, just come and talk to people. But anyway, and I said to them, it's not sadly what you know, it's who you know. Even though what you know is so important, you do need to get yourself out there and meet lots of people. And that's a great example. Like you went from the leak to LA. Who
Well,
would have
it's
thought
so
it?
funny. Like people were talking to me about all the people I know in comedy are doing really well, and I was like sort of I'm in an iron about something in a contract the other day. So I just was able to like shoot a text off to a bunch of people to ask a bunch of people who are writing on big shows, like, should I have this sticking? Should I have this sticking point about this thing in the contract? And they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like if they try and say this, try and stuff that I
Yeah.
just you think, oh, should I reach out to people? Because sometimes you feel it's really hard with like writing projects and show busy stuff because only like 10% of stuff comes to fruition. So you don't want to be like constantly asking people and then no work actually happening because then you just look like a knobhead. But like you've got to get that balance right between, oh, I need advice about how to do this thing that I've never done before and not get screwed over. So yeah, it's a tricky
I'm
balance,
very
isn't it?
bad at asking for help. I very rarely do it. I don't like to bother people. I like to figure stuff out on my own.
I know. I've really got to get out of that. Like, it's sort of, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's tricky. I know exactly what you mean. You don't want to seem like you're a pest, but actually, it's the people who just are asking people all the time or asking for what they want, get where they want to go.
Honestly, I've noticed a real consistency between people who aren't afraid to ask for help. Like people who ask me, people who come out of the blue and just be like, Athena, like someone asked me today for help about buying a bike because I know loads about bikes. And I thought I'd never ask anyone who knew loads about something for their advice. Not because I don't need it, but something there's like a barrier that stops me from leaning on people. This is how bad I am at asking for help. I was in the kitchen the other day and my eldest wanted a drink or something that meant I needed to unscrew a bottle, but I was holding my youngest and my partner was in the room. Rather than saying our eldest wants a drink, get it, went into the kitchen, took out the fridge with holding a baby, tried to unscrew it, couldn't do it because it was too tight, tried to unscrew it with my teeth, and he was standing there the whole time. He was like, Athena, you just could have asked me. I was like, it didn't, and I'm there try not to drop the baby, and I just thought, I guess so, but it never occurred to me. I probably need therapy to understand why it doesn't occur to me to get assistance in life.
One of the arguments that me and my husband have is like he'll stand there and watch me struggle with something but not offer to help, and I go, well, don't offer to help then. And he goes, oh, sorry. Like the other night we'd come in and like the dog was going nuts because there's been fireworks and we'd left him in for 6 hours. got out to dinner, and then my husband was just lying on the bed and the dog was peeing everywhere and I'm freaking out and jumping in the bath. He jumps in the bath when he's scared. And I was like, cleaning up pee, going, well, don't help me then.
That's so lovely. And I think like somebody who was like a relationship counselor would say, why didn't you just ask for help? And
I did.
Probably obliged. But he didn't say,
I didn't, don't help me.
That wasn't ask. It was more like, you useless fuck.
Yeah.
Get off the fucking bed.
I think I've given up on the asking. I like the asking where I go, can you help me do this? Now I'm more like, I really wish you would just notice.
But I understand, yeah.
And
I
your
understand
reflex is to throw a cloak over a puddle so I don't get my feet wet, you know.
Yeah. No, I understand that. There's some things that I would like to be done proactively. And sometimes I think if you're not going to do it proactively, don't do it at all. You know what I mean? If you're not going to do it off of your own back, then I can't be bothered. I'll do it myself. I think a lot of that comes from, that I'm very aware that I have that mentality. And also I've got this obsession. It is an obsession. I've got an obsession with being self-sufficient. And that probably comes from just like a childhood of having to do a lot for myself and having a lot of responsibility quite early on. Not like loads. I didn't like have 7 children when I was 16. Like that.
You've got brothers and sisters, yeah?
I've got brothers, but what I was always expected to probably do a bit more around the house, for example. So I was always, because I've got an Indian family, so the Indian mentality is very much like boys are boys, but girls work, you know. So I was always kind of doing all that kind of stuff. So my mentality was, if I'm hungry, I'll make something for myself to eat. It was never like, Mum, I'm hungry. It was always, I'll deal with it, because that's how I was taught. Whereas my brothers perhaps had a slightly different experience. So I come from that kind of psychological background,
so
right?
Irritating. I find it really annoying when, I don't know, as we said, I don't know if we'll end up having children, but I hope I don't raise useless ones. You know that thing where like you go to university and you realize like there's a bunch of people who don't cook for themselves, have never made themselves a meal, or I just haven't done their laundry, and they just like arrive in university and they're just smelly and undernourished.
Yeah, I know.
What's going on?
And I definitely felt a little bit. Now I look back and I think it's not their fault; they've not been taught. But you do think you can't wash up. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't iron, you can't cook. This is really odd. Like how will you ever expect us to survive? Yeah, I hope I don't raise useless children. So I'm always like trying to I've got a toddler now, so I'm always trying to get her to kind of, you know, be, even if it's simple stuff like get your pajamas off the radiator. Do you know what I mean? Okay, now
put your toys in the box. All that
exactly.
Sort of stuff.
We have tidy up time, and we play lots of like real life games. Like she makes pancakes with her little pancake toys and all this kind of stuff. So she has no imagination. She just her games are real. Now we mop the floor. Good girl. So how long have you been married for? Because I'm living in sin. So how long have you been married for?
Oh, we've been together like 5 or 6 years, and we got married in October of 2018. So like 2.5 years.
Oh, and did you get married because you moved from London to San Francisco? So did you get married in San Francisco?
No, we got married basically, my now husband got offered a job over here, and we was like, oh, I am where I am in comedy. Should I go over to America and do comedy over there and see how that goes? You know what I mean? And it was like sort of a good career jump for him over here. So we were just kind of getting all the paperwork together. And then we were just looking at like artist visas and stuff. We were just like, fucking hell, it's easier if we get married. The practical, like we were sort of on that path anyway. Like we met when we were older. The relationship was going really well. It was like it's so weird how relationships begin, isn't it? Like, even though we've just begun our podcast with a little Barney, but like, we don't look like we're not a very dramatic couple, and we get on really well. So it's like, well, this is going towards marriage anyway. Let's get there a bit sooner.
I love it. You got married for admin.
We got married for admin. We got married because we were like, it's going to like $20,000 to get this type of visa. And then, whereas if you're married, they would just fly me over there and put me on his health insurance and all that kind of stuff.
Was it like green card? Did you have to prove you're married? Did you have to like take lots of pictures of you pretending to be on ski holidays and things like that?
This is so funny. So actually, when we went to the consulate to get our visa, we went from Ireland, like the last step, because we went and spent some time in Ireland before with Owen's parents before we like flew over, because we spent Christmas with them, and we had to like make a wedding album of when we got married in London. So we put this wedding album together, and then my husband's got this like just like a typical thing. Like I've said, don't make a noise when I do a podcast. He starts unloading the dishwasher like 2 minutes before. So I was saying like something to do with the paperwork. I was like, don't unstaple it or staple it, because you know they take all the paperwork out and like give it back to you when you go for these visa things. And he was like stapling it or unstapling it, and then we were having an argument. I was like, he's just going to make you redo that all again, all the paperwork to prove that we're married. And I think like the immigration officer was just looking at us bickering, going, "Yeah, they're married.
You're married." Yeah.
As we bickered over stapling.
That's a surefire sign you're with your life partner. Like, I'm with you for life. Oh my god, it's true. I'm like, it's weird because my other half's a bit older than me, and he's kind of been there, done it already. And I'm like, I have this joke where I'm not used to seeing guys during the week. It's like I see them on Friday to Sunday, and I kick them out my flat. So it's a different mentality, and there's nowhere to hide. So if you're in a bad mood, normally if I'm in a bad mood, I'd just stay in my flat, or I would have stayed in my flat, and no one would have to see me. But now it's like he knows I have bad moods. Everyone thinks I'm amazing, but he knows the truth. Like he knows what I'm like in the morning. Like, yeah, everyone's grumpy in the morning, but I'm really grumpy, and he knows. Like, one day he's going to do like an expose. He's going to be like the cook report. He's just going to do like, he's got all my dirt. And that's very weird because no one's ever known me like that before. And that's very exposing to me.
Yeah, I just tell my husband, like, I'm grumpy today. I'm in a mood. I just tell him, I go, I'm grumpy. Or I go, yeah, I'm getting my period, so watch out.
Yeah.
Like, don't wind me up, or I'm going to lose my temper really easily.
And I guess, the other weird thing is because of the circumstances that joined us, he's only really known me as pregnant or breastfeeding. So he hasn't really known. He
hasn't known you mental. Basically.
Exactly. He's never, and perhaps neither of us really appreciate what that has done in terms of what he knows about me. And I'm sure he's probably observed that I'm probably different around other people than I'm around him, not because I find him really boring and I find other people amazing, but because around him I'm literally always pregnant or mothering a small child. You know what I mean? Whereas with my friends or my family, it's like the old Athena, but he's got the new, not improved Athena. He's got like the kind of the slightly
the used
version.
Athena.
Yeah, he's got the used car version, that's been dented. It's a cut and shut. Basically, quite literally had C-sections. And that's difficult. So it might be like, it might be another, I mean, the new one's 6 months now. So maybe once he's off the breast, then I'm starting to get back to my old ways. I was on my bike the other day and I'm starting to work more.
Don't get accidentally pregnant again.
Oh, listen, I swear to God, I missed a pill the other day. When I say it was almost separate beds, I was like, don't come near me. Don't come near me for 7 days. You cannot touch. We're not even holding hands, mate.
You can edit this out of the podcast, but get an IUD, man. They're so good.
I've never liked the idea of having something physically, in me. Like, I've never liked that idea. I think it's a mental block that I've got with that.
So good. You don't get period pains anymore either. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was funny enough, because I missed this pill, I was like thinking I need to do something else because I can't, and the busier you are, the more you miss them because you're just busy. Even when you've got the reminder on your phone, and I'm like, I just need something that I don't have to think about. So, I mean, what's happening in America? Was there a significant change in the temperature of America when Trump left? Was it like, like the birds are singing again?
Yeah, man, it's been mad because like I'm not sure if I told you this, but like I was out in the garden like picking up some dog poop, and then suddenly there were people were screaming, like someone our next door neighbor ran out of the garden screaming their heads off, and I was thinking, what the fuck? And then everyone just started screaming across San Francisco and horns started going, and I think, and like my husband thought I'd hit myself in the garden, so he ran out into the garden and go, you okay? And I was like, no, I'm fine. I was like, I think Biden's won. And then like ran in to check the news. And then it's been quite weird because there's kind of been a sort of deplatforming of Trump and a sort of media blackout on him. So a lot of the channels that spread misinformation, they're being sued now by like Dominion or people they've told lies about. There's lots of libels on them. So I think a lot of them are afraid to have Trump back on because he would repeat those lies and then they could get sued again. And so he's off Facebook, he's off Twitter. He set up his own website, but didn't have good content on it, and it wasn't being updated and didn't have any traffic. So they eventually took that down. He's having to send press releases to people like it's the 1950s. And then they read them 5 days later after the news thing has passed. So it's been a really nice shift from him just not always being in the news doing or saying something insane or like unhelpful or that's a complete lie. And that's been really nice. And yeah, it did feel very apocryphal when he was in power because it was just so strange. Like, where are we going? Where is this going? What is this about? And also that he's still, a lot of people voted for him. So there's still like half of America, still 75 million people voted for him. So still 75 million people who are buying into, I'm not quite sure what it is they think he's selling, but they're buying into it nonetheless. So that's interesting.
It is. I mean, I'm fascinated by the fact that there's that statistic where Joe Biden got the most votes out of any candidate in history, but Trump got the second out of any candidate in history. So it's not something to celebrate. Almost, I didn't feel like Biden's victory was something to hugely celebrate because you had to mobilize that many people because so many more people like Trump. Like, thank God he got that many votes because which is scary to me because it just means in the next cycle there'll just be a new Trump. They'll just get someone else who isn't to be fair, that I mean I haven't been following the Republican Party too much, but the succession planning has been really poor because of the way Trump ran the party. So they're not going to have Cruz or Rubio again, but because they're tarnished as well. But it'll be interesting to understand whether Trump runs again or it's Kanye West. Who knows?
I think it's more likely Trump's be in prison before he can have the opportunity to run again.
Wouldn't that be incredible? Because I thought Trump would win. I genuinely thought he'd get a second term, because I've got no faith in people. I think people are just trash, and I think that they can't be trusted and they like the status quo. So it would be, I would eat that humble pie, I'll eat that hat, I'll eat whatever I've got to do to eat those words. It's like, how does he become president? How does the system allow him to become president, but also that same system puts him in jail? It's such an odd place, America. It's so odd.
It's wild. I'm making a documentary about all of this. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you told me, and I was like, no, you told me you're making a documentary about the riots, the kind of white supremacist kind of invading the Capitol. Is that part of the same thing?
We made a short doc for Channel 4 News called Meet the QAnon Shaman. I'll send it to you.
Right.
We were following a bunch of people down in Arizona, like the hardcore Trump supporters. And then one of the people we were following and had loads of interviews with is Jake Angeli. He's the QAnon shaman. And then so when he went and stormed the Capitol...
yes, that's what you told me, yes.
Alex, who's the DP, was like, should we sell some of this footage? I was like, yeah, you can absolutely sell it and make loads of money, but you should try and make something in your own voice and then sell it to a news channel, which is what we did. We made a short doc. It was really funny making that because I'm working with Alex is like a longtime friend and collaborator of mine. And he was initially doing the voiceover. He's got this really downbeat sort of northern accent, very talented photographer and filmmaker, but talks like this. So he was doing all the voiceover for it. And he was going, suddenly the Bidens, and it sounded hysterically funny. And I was just like, fuck, as the producer, I've really got to tell him, like, delicately, we've got to take him off the VO because it's like ruining the piece. And
Riot Club, they've stormed
the Capitol now. And so he called me up and he was going, yeah, I really want to talk to you about my voiceover. I'm not sure it's working. I'm like, oh God, thank God, it's terrible. Yeah, we got to get rid of it. I'm so glad you brought that up. And then we got Christian Gurush, I can't say his surname, that guy who's on
Christian Guru-Murthy.
Christian Guru-Murthy, before I get his name wrong. And then we were sort of editing it with him, and that was really funny because we're sort of we were trying not to make a news piece that was like polemic, or what we were trying to show is actually what the fuck is going on, basically. There are lots of really nice Trump supporters who are really nice people. And when you drill into the reasons why they're voting for Trump, some of them are legit, they're not being served by the status quo. They're not being served by the Democrats. They're the left behind nation. They wanted a disruptor, someone who came in and spoke their language. Like Trump made, whatever you want to say about Trump, you can say a lot about him. He made politics really accessible for a lot of people who didn't understand what was going on. And he's always been very consistent in his messaging about what he thinks about America's imperialist tendencies and what he thinks about globalization and how it doesn't serve people. And some of the things that he says are right. It's not the way he's going about implementing policy doesn't really help America and isn't future-proofing it. But he's speaking the language of a lot of people. You've got to ignore the racism and the white supremacy and all that other stuff that's going on, which is so weird.
Yeah, I think, and I speak a bit about, when I talk about politics in this country, I say what's really weird is that people have these political opinions, so they call themselves socialists or right wing, whatever, but actually they don't know what their opinions are. Their opinions are all over the place, and Trump is a really amazing example of that, because his anti-globalization, anti-imperial agenda is actually quite sort of left-wing. It's not what you'd expect him to believe.
And do you know what? It's actually really interesting because we've been speaking to people on the far left and the far right to make this documentary, and they actually want the same thing. And it's that classic thing of when, like, Martin Luther King was trying to unite poor Black America and poor white America and saying, look, these systems of oppression are keeping you both down. You're more powerful together. You should unite. And then we could, really bring about change. So then he got assassinated. So,
but that's the thing, isn't it? Because his message had efficacy, and once he started to become more convincing to people across the board, he couldn't be permitted to tell that story. I'm not the first person to say this, but when people talk about politics as a line, that's not really the case. It's really a circle, and the two extreme ends kind of meet. So fascism and ultra hard communism, or whatever you want to call the far left, they kind of meet quite neatly. Like, they're almost the same societies. I'm turning 40 this year.
Fuck, how's it feel, man?
Honestly, it feels great, and I think it feels great for two reasons. I had a career change, so I think if you're approaching 40 and you're stuck somewhere, or you've been somewhere for a long time, you go through a reevaluation of your life. Whereas I've literally I stopped doing my day job November 2019. That was the last day of project management that I did. So I still feel, it makes you feel young again. You don't have that. If I just had that, I'd be reflecting on the last 10, 15 years, and I'd be like, oh, what's next? But now, because everything's still fledgling, I can concentrate on that. And the second thing is kids. It's very hard to feel like negative about the future when you've got these two amazing little things. Yeah, it's very hard to feel like, oh, I'm so sad about getting old. You feel excited about them growing up. So that excitement,
nice.
that excitement, coupled with the fact that I'm still kind of, on the kind of the base camp of the comedy mountain, so to speak, makes me feel really excited about being.
I know what you mean. I had this thing where I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to like stop being a comic and get a proper job again. And then that's been going on for the last year during COVID when we haven't been able to gig. And then I was like, I mean, I've got no other skills. I've been doing this so long now. I'm a copywriter, but even then I can't do any of the client management stuff. I need someone to do that for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would you stop doing something that you love because you think that you shouldn't, or you should, I don't know. It's quite a weird thing to go through.
Yeah, I think you have to pay your bills, but that's why I kept my job for so a lot of people were surprised that they would find out I was working and they'd be surprised. It's like, I'm not giving up my financial security for this game. Do you know what I mean? Like, no way.
That story, sorry to interrupt, about Rod Gilbert was still working in an office when he done Live at the Apollo.
Yeah, I think I was listening to a radio show with Darren Harriott. I don't know if you met him, but he said he was still working security when he did Live at the Apollo as well. And I find that highly relatable. I honestly do. I think, it's weird. Comedy is really weird where you go from these extremes where you earn very little doing what you do, and then the next day you get an offer and you earn loads. And because you've literally just gone from earning very little, you don't have that mentality of, I'm rich. Do you know what I mean? Not that you become that rich, to be honest, but you don't have that mentality of, yeah, I mean, this is the big time because yesterday you earned 60 quid for a middle, you know? So like, yeah, okay.
That's so funny. I know what you would mean, because I'd be like, do it like gigging, living on my gig money. And then when I'd get a big thing that would pay something like a bit of a writing job or a big stint of work or like 2 months of gigs, and then all that money came in, I go, right, I'll just pay off my credit card now. And I'm
Yeah.
just back to zero.
But it's funny. So you have these kind of these life extremes. I was trying to explain to my partner what it's like to kind of, because he just sees me work all the time, so he's just like, everything's fine. It's like, no, it's not, because there's different kinds of work. There's a lot of work I still do for free, you know. So if to being busy doesn't mean you're making a lot of money, but similarly, you can do the easiest job in the world and you can get shitloads. So that mentality means that, or that mentality that produces means, yeah, you probably will keep your day job until it becomes untenable, which is what happened to me in the end. So if I didn't get to a point where it wasn't practically possible, I would probably still have it. Yeah.
It's so weird. It's such a weird career to choose, because like I always found that I'd have like career like highs, and I just like for like a year just do lots of things, say yes to everything, and do loads of projects and have loads of sleepless nights and just drive myself crazy spinning loads of plates. But then I would get something out of it. And I think we moved over here, I was a bit burnt out, because I was like, well, I just feel like I don't know what oomph is going to take me to the next level where I want to go over there. And I was like getting on the megabus and going up to Edinburgh for like 400 quid or something. And I was thinking, oh, well, am I in a bit of a rut? Should I just change things up? Will that do something interesting? And also that thing of like being a foreign comic who's already sort of quite well formed and quite good, and then turning up in another country. I thought I'd quite like to do that, actually. That would be interesting to do.
What can you talk about that? What was it like going to San Francisco as a new comic, but not a new comic?
Um, it was it was actually really good in the sense that I wasn't having to like prove myself or anything anymore, because people were just like, yeah, you know, a couple of people vouched for me, and I did some big shows when I arrived, so I didn't really have to do a lot of that kind of kissing ass or anything. And I was, you know, quickly like starting to make a bit of cash from it. And then I sort of went up to LA to talk to some agents, and then the person I was talking to got furloughed, and then the COVID happened. So obviously I'll be going back up there, and then made friends with some comics. It's not as I wouldn't say I've totally found my people yet in terms of comics out here. I feel like in the UK scene, it's really lovely, because like, even though, you know, I might not be super close friends with someone, we're still sort of tight in the way that we've known each other a really long time, and we all know each other. And it's there's a lot of camaraderie there. I think in the UK, when people start doing well, like people are really happy for people, you know, they're like, oh, good for them. Over here, it's like that American thing is like everyone's a bit more competitive. But I think that there are like genuine people who just love comedy. And I think I've met a few of them already, and I feel that it might take me a bit of a while to like find my groove over here where I slot in. But and also like what type of comedy I'm going to try and do, and how is that going to work. And there's a lot more work over here. There's a lot more writers' rooms. I'm not sure if I want to be an American road comic. I'd much rather try and get myself into a writer's room. But I still love doing live comedy, you know, in the sense that like there are people who do in the UK, like do Edinburgh shows, do live shows, but you've never really see them on the circuit. You know, they'll have like really well received shows in Edinburgh, and they'll be writing stuff or popping up on Radio 4, but they're not making their bread and butter from the circuit. Do you know what I mean?
Would you rather? Are you like a circuit person, or would you rather be the Edinburgh person?
I think over here, I'd rather be the Edinburgh person over here, because the circuit stuff is like, I think it's a bit grim being a circuit comic in
America. It's so vast, right?
It's so vast. It's so like, you imagine how lonely it is in the UK. Imagine that loneliness times by 100, but in a weird place where you're worried about your safety in the middle of rural America. It's like less pleasant. You know what I mean?
Well, Gina Yasharei's got an autobiography out, and I can't wait to read it, because that's kind of what she did. And it fascinates me because she obviously did it quite successfully, but there would have definitely, I wonder if there were times, because it took her years, and I wonder if there are times where she was thinking, I don't like this decision at all. It doesn't feel like there was, but that's exactly what you described. Like she just performed all over America.
I think that would be like quite an interesting thing to do for a while. I mean, I've got to talk to John Hastings. He's based in LA, and he has like 2 or 3, he says about 2 weekends booked a month where he's not in LA, he's just out and he's making like doing a weekend somewhere and making a big handful of money, you know? Yeah. And so I think that's a good way to do it. But, I don't know. I've just got to see what happens this next year with a couple of things I'm doing. I've just really enjoyed when we've been sort of doing writers' rooms together. Yes. I think that's been so much fun. And I just wanted to ask you about your process, because I found it so really fun and easy to work with you, because and I found it really interesting, because it's really interesting I think this is one of the most difficult things to do when you're writing, is finding people who give in the same sort of notes, or like you'll say something about a script of mine and I'm like, yeah, I think that's a weak point too. I got to figure out how to fix that. And I'm always worried about giving other people notes in case they think my notes are shit. So I'm always like, okay, just take what you think is useful and leave the rest. Yeah, because I really liked your script idea, and I was like, oh, you just got to push this into something. This is so rich, this world. You got to push it into something else. Yeah, I don't know. What were your thoughts around that? How have you found writing rooms and stuff?
Well, I really enjoy writing. I am very fortunate because, first of all, when I decided, right, I want to do more scripted comedy, being a parent means I can't just be traveling. I need to make comedy that I have to leave my house to make. I did a lot of study. So I read it, I read all the books and, did as much research as I could, and, read all the Into the Woods and all that stuff. And then the second thing that happened to me that maybe that was really fortunate was I got into the comedy room. So I went to like a school of how to write. So and then the third thing that happened to me was I got the Felix Dexter bursary. So I went to another school which taught me how to write. So what that did was it gave me a lot of confidence in terms of knowing what I don't know, but also what I do know about how to write a script. So when I give a note, it doesn't come from a place of, well, I just think this is shit. Why? Because I think so. It comes from a place of, no, I've read about how plots work and C plots and having opposites and blah blah. I can't think of anything at the moment. It's quite late for me.
The mum brain is kicking in.
Yeah, no, but like neutral this or whatever. Like I just haven't. I've kind of demystified the writing process, not to the point where I've got a commission, but to the point where I can write a script, and so, but I've enjoyed working with you because I like your ideas, and like I think with scripts you can't really polish a turd. If a script's no good, you can't give notes. You can't say change this because you can only.
So they just don't understand how story and character works.
Precisely, yeah. And this is what I say to people: like, you can't just like write nonsense and then make it good. You have to really do the work and understand how comedy works and how scripted comedy works and how dialogue works and how character works, and then you can go through the note process. So because basically we're both great. And that's why we can both do
this is it's really funny because like I also enlisted Chris Martin, who's actually had some.
I know Chris, yeah.
He's lovely, very talented. Yeah. Really like him. And he's over in LA with his wife. And so I was getting his advice on how to do stuff. And he gave me some really brilliant feedback. He was like going, yeah, this is like a classic stand-up script. Like the structure needs work. The structure and the A and B plots sort of need work, but the dialogue's amazing and fizzes along and the characters are really good. But the story is like, you need to sort out the structure. I'm like, yeah. They say there's 2 types of writers. There's architects and there's gardeners. So architects are people like have like a superstructure in their head, and they sort of are really good at structure, really good at bringing things together. And gardeners are like sort of people who tweak it all together like that. And I'm definitely a gardener. Like I'll start with a character and an idea, or maybe an idea for a funny scene, and then I'll build it backwards.
Yeah.
And then I'll zoom out and I'll go, okay, now let's really sort this structure out.
Yeah, what am I? The funny thing is, I think I'm a gardener, but I'm trying to become an architect. So I'm doing. So I told
Yeah.
you my scripts. I put it in the bin and I've started again from scratch, and I'm doing it from a much more structural place. And I'm actually really enjoying that process when I'm doing it. At the moment, I'm not really doing it that much at the moment, but that's what I'm aiming for. And also I find it easier. I find it easier to have everything plotted out, and I just fill in the gaps with dialogue. Otherwise, it will take me months to finish something. But if I have the structure, then that works. So I recently got a commission to do an episode or something, and that's why I had to write it, because they gave me like a week to write the script. And I was like, oh my god! That's the only way I could do it. Have that, get my little record cards out, and do scene 1, scene 2, and do my scene by scene and all that stuff. And it's a horrible process. I don't enjoy that way of writing, but even though I don't enjoy it, I do find that it gives me my script a bit quicker. It delivers my script a bit more quickly than if I do it the other way around. So I think you can change. I think you can become an architect, but being a gardener is great too.
Oh no, I think so. I think actually, I mean, like if you're naturally a gardener and then you sort of make an effort to retrain as an architect, it's good, because I sometimes feel that when scripts are too plotted and too A to B to C, it just feels a bit like too formulaic, and there's no character, there's no depth, and there's no kind of decoration there, you know? So I think it's good to have a bit of both. But yeah, those are the things I
think that with sitcom, one thing I learned is like what that formula is what you're aiming for. You know, it's just, but you're right, you got to hide it. So people don't go, oh, it's the classic C plot, you know, but like at the same time, if you can achieve that whole kind of 3 or 5 acts, A plot, B plot, C plot, blah, 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 all that crap, if you can achieve it, you do create something that just works. And now every time I watch comedy, it's very hard for me to enjoy. Have you watched a program called Ghost? It's on the BBC, so you might not have caught it in America.
You know, I did watch it, and I find that quite formulaic sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's really formulaic, yeah.
And I find that quite difficult to enjoy, because I can sort of, you know, when you're being sort of pointed in the direction, but that is like a classic, really like high concept thing that would get picked up in the UK. Like it's almost like an amazing box tick. Like, have you heard of that? Being Human was in development for ages with the BBC.
No.
So Being Human, these 3 characters were, and they were getting these notes back all the time, the guy who wrote it. And they were like, notes back about differentiating the characters or giving them their own drive or blah, blah, blah. And he went, why don't I just make one a werewolf, one a vampire, and one a ghost? Like, said it jokingly. And they were like, do it. And that was in response to like I've heard that story. I'm not sure if it's true, but it sounds really true, because I remember writing something and saying they wanted me to write a character in a certain way for a certain episode, and I said like the worst idea I could think of, and they were like, write it, do it. And I'm like, fuck. And then that was the thing that ends up being on TV, and I hated it. But like, so never say in jest something that you think is shit, because they'll undoubtedly go for it and think it's brilliant.
On that piece of advice, I am going to sadly wrap up this chat. As much
I've got to end on a more positive note. We've got to end on a more positive note.
Say something nice about the commissioning environment in the United Kingdom. Go.
It's finally getting a bit more really diversified, and they're putting different stories out there, and you know, they're aware that they keep having these shock successes, like what's her face, lovely red-headed comic who's the mate, just won a BAFTA.
Oh my gosh, Sophie Willan.
Sophie Willan, I think.
Rose Matafeo. It was one of the two.
Sophie Willan.
Okay,
Rose might have won one as well, but like I think she was telling the story about how some BBC commissioners came to see like a version of her Edinburgh show, and they were just a bit like, oh, but who's going to be interested in a story about a woman growing up in care? And it's all, you know, that sort of feedback she got. And it's like lots of people, because not everyone is a middle-aged white man who is privately educated, you dickhead.
And so it's like, so Tracy Beaker is one of the most popular kids shows out there, and that's about care home and the dumping ground. So you might not be aware of this, but there were like these 2 children's shows that are like the biggest children's shows on the planet, or in the UK at least, and they're huge.
Oh yeah, Tracy Beaker, I did.
Yeah, Tracy Beaker, and like they're like the best-selling books. Like these are stories that people care about. Like they're not like
it's so weird. I think that, like getting stuff through. So I think that the commissioning process is becoming like a bit more, I don't know, what's the right word? It's definitely like that diversity is included. They want to tell different types of stories, which is really good, because I think that's a great thing. So if you've got a weird story that you want to tell, or you want to come at something from a different angle, then that's actually, as long as you can just get it over that hurdle.
Right. Okay. So that's a good note for me. Make my story weirder.
Not weirder, or just make one a ghost, one a werewolf, and one a vampire.
Yeah, perfect. I'm definitely going to be the vampire.
And also hire me on your writing team. Thank you very much.
You're hired. This is a contractually binding podcast. You're hired. I'm not paying you though. I'm not paying you. You're just going to work.
Well, I could get paid in crisps and drink tokens again.
Crisps, drink tokens, and pogs.
And pogs.
Yeah. Amy, it has been a pleasure.
Athena.
It is just incredibly saddening to me that you're not here in my house for me to fry your plantain and make you coffee. But one day we'll meet again.
I think I'm back in September, so hold the plantain. I'll be coming over.
Come back and meet the kids. Yeah, have a great day. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, awesome.
Link me in September. That sounds fantastic. Enjoy your day. Go and have some makeup sex now.
I mean, it is mid-40s, so we got. Yeah. You got to coax it out of him now.
whatever you're gonna do to make up for the clicking, you do what you got to do, girl. Just make sure you turn the camera off, because I can see everything right now.
Okay, cool. We'll do.
All right, but thank you for coming to keep my company. Thank you.
Oh, lovely to see you.
Take it easy. That was the fantastic Amy Howerska. Amy, thank you for coming on to my podcast once again. Amy is such a lovely, warm, open and fantastic soul that she enables you to talk about anything with her, literally anything. I never thought I would mention IUD contraception on a podcast, but here we are talking about it on a podcast. So thank you, Amy, for that. If you want to catch up with what Amy is doing, I should mention that I didn't give her the proper introduction because we were interrupted by her partner doing the washing up. But Amy is a stand-up, comedy writer, a wonderful comedian, an incredibly funny person. So you need to follow her on Instagram and Twitter and get to know her and what she's doing. She's based in America at the moment, so you can't catch her live, unfortunately, but she's working on some lovely projects, and she does have that documentary out, which I will link to in the description of this podcast. Right, guys, thank you for getting to the end of this episode. It's always appreciated. If you liked it, give it a comment, give it a share, give it a like. Do what you do with podcasts that you enjoy. My name is Athena Venue. I'm a stand-up and a writer, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, and come say hello if you would like. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch up next time.